morning, YouTube. Good morning, channel subscribers. I am Sister Kate. Sister Kate Show Far Mountain is my channel, and I wanted to talk today about breakfast. I got up early. Normally I don't get up real early, but I slept a lot yesterday, and so I decided to make a breakfast this morning. Real simple. I'm sure you guys have had this kind of breakfast. Probably make it yourself. It's fried potatoes with eggs. And with mine, I usually put onions in there, sometimes garlic. Sometimes if I have leftovers like meat or veg, I'll throw them in on top. But today, it was just the very simple potatoes, onions, eggs, right? And what struck me while I was eating it is how I just take it for granted. Like, I'm going to have this breakfast and I'm going to have it when I want to have it. I went out into my garden area and I picked some collard green leaves. These collards are the ones that have been in my greenhouse now since last summer. And they've made it, and they're trying to go to seed, but the winter didn't phase them, and they survived the bugs and everything, so they're out there. And then I got some spices to throw in there as well, because, you know, potatoes, very bland flavor, and so the genius of a potato in your dish is you can flavor the dish and the potato will taste like that flavor. So I wanted to make a couple of points about the breakfast because I've been eating this kind of breakfast since I was a child in the Philippines. We had a Filipino maid at the time. Her name was Ellen, and she was the sweetest lady. Anyway, she made this breakfast, and she had learned it from a previous occupant there, and I've loved it ever since. So one of the points I wanted to make today about this breakfast is focused in on the egg component, right? It's 2025. It's springtime now, and there has been an egg shortage in the U.S. for about a year and a half. And I forget the reason that there was a shortage last summer, but this spring, the shortage is due to avian flu. And it may have been avian flu last year. I didn't pay attention. I've not had any problems with any of that. So, in some places, when you buy eggs, you are limited in how many dozen you can buy. It talks two dozen eggs was it. That was it. That's all people could buy. Meanwhile, if you're a homesteader and you have your own flock and they have not been influenced by the avian flu, if you're not one of the danger zones or whatever, your hens will be laying pretty much an egg a day, every other day, starting now in the springtime when the sunlight gets, your days get longer. And so these particular eggs that I used this morning, there were about 4 of them that were less than standard size. They were smaller. And for all of you people who have chickens, you understand what that means. These are first-time hens laying eggs. This is their first springtime egg laying. These hens are probably 5 to 6 months old, maybe a little bit older. And in particular in my flock, these little eggs are greenish or greenish blue or just plain like light green. That is because generations of chickens ago here on the property, I had a white rooster who was kind of speckled, given to me by a friend who had Araucana bloodlines. And his offspring now, probably 4 generations of chickens later, which in a life of a chicken is not that long, possibly 4 years, 3 years, his granddaughters, or possibly even great-granddaughters now, are laying these eggs because of him. And so I knew that when I was cracking them, that these eggs came directly from a bloodline that I've had on my lands now for years. And there's a certain amount of satisfaction to that. And then the other egg was a bigger brown egg. And again, if you have chickens, you know that your bigger eggs come from your older birds. And I'm looking up towards my coop. You can hear my tom turkey going off. It's springtime. His hormones make him do that, and he's over there just yelling. But you can also hear a rooster fussing in the background. That's where my chicken coop is. And those hens, again, are the offspring of hens I've had, again, for years, like 10, no, it can't be 10, 6 years-ish, starting with some Australorps, and then I've had some Buff Orpingtons, and then I've had airplanes flying over. Can we get much more noise in the background? I don't know. Some brown Sussex hens. I still have their babies, and this brown egg came from that set of birds. Same set of birds, but these new hens were hatched by one of those hens last winter time. Not even winter, end of fall. And the particular hen who hatched them came from the brown Sussex line. And another of her sisters also hatched chicks last year. This particular one, out of the 6 that I think she hatched, 4 survived. And if you know chicken math and chicken biology, your egg hatchings are going to be approximately 50% male, 50% female. And in my flock, right now I have too many roosters. I have 3 roosters, and you only need 1 up to 20 hens. So 2 of them I keep kind of separate from the main flock. So when these eggs hatched, I was really hoping that it wouldn't be 50-50, because out of 6 eggs, that would be 3 hens, 3 roosters. I certainly didn't need any more roosters. But in this particular case, she hatched 6. Of the 6, 4 survived, and all were hens. Excuse me. That is very unusual, and it made me happy, because now I have 10 to 11 hens. They lay eggs every day or 2, and that means plenty of eggs for PJ and I, with overflow that we can give to friends and relatives. So that's the egg portion of the meal. Now, I told you I got a spice out of my greenhouse and the collards to add to this dish. I already gave you the collards lowdown. The spice was rosemary, and I've got 2 plants in there now that I bought. I believe I bought them last fall and then planted them. They've been in the greenhouse, and again, they survived. I've also had rosemary planted outside that didn't survive. And I have an oregano plant that was originally planted in there when we set that greenhouse up, so it's 6 years old at least, that has had baby oreganos that I've gifted to other people, and I grabbed a few leaves of the oregano, and that's what I spiced this meal with. So the last point I wanted to make is about the potatoes. The potatoes I have grown potatoes here. I've had potatoes here pretty much for the last 6 years, and I've shown them in videos and photos on my website. I usually don't plant a ton of potatoes, and I've planted potatoes from seed potatoes that I bought at our local hardware store, our farm co-op store, and I've also planted potatoes that I bought in grocery stores, and usually they will sprout. So once the grocery store ones sprout, that's when I planted them. And I've always gotten some. The most potatoes I've gotten back, somewhere between probably 20 pounds, have lasted PJ and I from the time I harvest them, which can be as early as July and as late as like September. And those potatoes last us generally till December. And we don't have great storage here. It's a little too warm to plant them in not plant them, but store them underground. So they've just been sitting out in the house. And one year, when we didn't use them all right away, they did get a black mold in them because they were too warm. But last year's did fine, and we ate them all the way through December, possibly even January. Have them, in those hardy wintertime meals where you make a stew, or you have them baked, or you have them fried for breakfast, and it all went well. But this particular time, I used store-bought potatoes. Now, this meal had another significance to me because recently I visited one of my daughters, and she made the same kind of breakfast for her family and me while I was staying there. And she had a little bit different technique than I do, so I watched her cook hers, and hers came out absolutely perfectly. And so this time around, when I was cooking this meal, I was frying the potatoes first because that's what she did. And she left them on the heat for a while, enough to get browned on one side, and then she flipped them. Normally, when I'm cooking them, I'll throw them and the onions in the whatever oil or butter that I'm cooking with, and then I will just periodically stir them. So I tried her technique. The texture came out awesome. And something else I do is I'll use, because last night we had boiled potatoes for dinner. If we don't eat them all, I will have those boiled potatoes. They're already soft, and I will just cut them up and throw them in the dish as well. And so it was a perfect texture. I softened the potatoes after they were sauteed a bit in the fat with some chicken broth, which sort of helps them cook and also flavors the potatoes with that little bit of chicken flavor. Can you hear that? A chicken, I say the word chicken fussing, right? Just happens to be that way when you're on a homestead. Anyway, it was a tasty meal, and I took a lot of pleasure in the fact of knowing how much of it I had made myself and how much of it we had grown ourselves. And that kind of ties in with the end of the video, which is when you live on a homestead, there's a lot of hard work. You have to feed your chickens. You have to make sure they have adequate housing. You have to watch over them. You have to make sure they're healthy enough. And if they have an issue going on, you have to take care of that issue. Whether it's foot problems or gut problems, you're kind of their vet, unless you want to call a vet to take care of your animals. And that can be very pricey, as you know. Also, homestead life affords you, with your hard work, food that you can eat, spices that you can flavor your food with, and the peace of mind that comes with eating your produce that you know doesn't have any chemicals added, that you don't need to worry about what they've been sprayed with, what you fed to your chickens. You have control over all of that. And I get a certain amount of satisfaction from that as well. Just that feeling that I can feed myself. And especially with the birds, because the chicken struggle is real. Like, you can get 25 chicks, and you're lucky if all of them survive through their little, growing phases, through all sorts of things. They're too cold, they're too hot, they ate something they shouldn't have, they got stuck and they couldn't get back under the heating lamp or under their hen mother to stay warm enough. But something I wanted, that was a goal here on our homestead, that luckily I've managed to achieve now, praise the Father, is hens who will hatch chicks, and then their babies who will then hatch chicks. And then you get these generational birds. That saves you from having to go to the store and buy chicks every year. Now, do I? Yes, I do. Simply for variety. And sometimes just that urge to increase the flock. I will make an exception, and maybe I'll buy a few. But what I've actually been able to do last summer, and I think I made a video about that, when friends have had losses in their flock and needed a few chickens to plus it up, because I've had hens, I had 6 hens at one time who were hatching chicks. Because I had that, and they were good moms, I was able to gift sets of birds, roosters with some hens, to more than one person. And that also, to me, has a certain satisfaction to be able to help out people I care about and who I interact with. So that's my video this morning, just sort of an explanation and a testimony about the goodness of living on a homestead. And for me, an off-grid homestead. So a lot of hard physical work goes into achieving the things that we can enjoy, I can enjoy the blessings of right now. And I get a lot of satisfaction in that. And that's what having a life of faith and walking it out and living it, that's the promise you get from the Bible, from God. He says you will have a peaceful life. And we have managed to achieve it. And I'm grateful for that. All right, y'all. Thank you for hanging out with me this morning. Thank you for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing y'all on live streams, and I look forward to your comments. Make sure you hit the bell and the notifications and everything. Some of you say you don't always get notifications for the live streams and so on. I can't affect that, but you can by being subscribed and by hitting your notifications. All right, y'all. I'm going to get out there and get to work again. Bless you. Shalom.